All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Today, we had a lot going on. Of course, we had the speech by the the State of the Union. At the time that was going down, we have, of course, Department of Homeland going down, or the website going down. It is, as of now, back up, but something strange happened as far as major news agencies were noticing that at the same time, a lot of things were going down. Was this an event, or was this an overload of some reason? Was this a cyber event that just kind of is going to get pushed under the rug? At the same time, you actually had FENMA go down. These were all done not by somebody over on Twitter. When this was said, when this was announced, I believe we got the first notice from Roz Alerts over on Twitter. We ended up verifying it. So these are our screenshots to make sure that this was correct. Now, are both of them back up? Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing?
Hey, Adam, I'm doing just fine. Look, yeah, they both were back up during the speech, but it was interesting that they all three or four of them had gone down at the same time, including the two you've shown, plus a couple of others like the Secret Service website and I think ICE was the other one.
And then, as far as a lot of people were watching the speech tonight, and of course we are on late because we wanted to make sure we got that and were able to watch that and be able to understand what was going on with it. Also, a lot of people were watching another Tucker and his reaction to that. Now, some people were actually watching because T-Man, our former prez, was actually going to live respond to all of this, and he was. And there were huge networks that were actually showing his responses side by side. So if he would say something, it would show our former president's live response to it. Well, within seconds of him going on and actually speaking, our current prez, our former prez's whole media platform went down. It said, network failed, please try again. So a lot of folks, we don't know if it was overloaded, but again, so all of these networks that were actually live covering the speech and then split screening it with the live response, it's like conveniently right as he started speaking, it went down. So a lot of people are asking questions about that. Now, we've had cyber events all week. In fact, all this month, there have been major events against pharmacies. 30,000 pharmacies went down. United Healthcare went down. You had, of course, cell phones go down. AT&T outage. Cell phones nationwide. Chunks of cell phones went down under certain providers. They said it was because of a patch update or something. People are starting to wake up to the fact that something is going on that we don't know exactly what it is, but it's definitely hiding right behind a shadow. As far as in February 9th, Russia supposedly launched something very scary into space. And again, this is what the government was saying, where Congress ended up coming out and saying, hey, the public needs to be told right now. This is the same week they told us that there's massive threats that are, that it's much worse than it was in 2001, all of the chatter that's going on. And then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, Space Force and SpaceX and the DoD actually launched a secret payload into space. So a lot of people are questioning, like, how many cyber events are going on right now? How many electronic warfare events are going on right now? That is a really big question at this point. As far as these major services going down, obviously FENMA, if that service goes down during a disaster, that's a bad thing. If communications for these things go down, that would be a big deal, especially if we have any natural disaster, any kind of earthquake, any kind of tsunami. If you're on the West Coast, we're expecting the Cascadia subduction zone here at some point. It would be a really, really horrible event, especially if you're an adversarial country that wants to take advantage of, I don't know, years-long infiltration into our critical infrastructure. So what the heck is going on here? I guess we will find out. We're going to talk about this and much more on tonight's show. So stick around. It's going to get wild. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
You got the problem, we got the problem, we go solve them. You got the problem, you got the problem, we got the problem, we go solve them. You got the problem, you got the problem, we got the problem, we go solve them. You got the problem.
All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. NASA prepares for, quote, internet apocalypse threat from impending solar storm by 2025. Now, everybody has been talking about EMP and cyber events for the last month. We've been talking about this for 5 years, but now they are talking about solar events. And it is no surprise because now we are in solar cycle 25, not to have anything to do with the year. It is the 25th cycle. They've been following this for a very long time. We have very close friends that have been following solar events for a very long time. We have actually talked about this solar cycle since before this solar cycle started. In fact, there was events that happened. The termination event at the end of solar cycle 24 actually showed a huge sign that they've been tracking this, they say, for around 400 years through different data. And they say that this cycle, or the last cycle, showed a termination event that looked a whole lot like a previous termination event. So think of cycles inside of cycles. Every cycle being 11 years, and now there's 2 scientists that are actually popularizing this 22-year cycle. So basically combine 2 cycles in one out of all of the cycles. And they're looking at the termination event of one cycle into the next, and they looked at a previous set of how this rotates around, and they're saying that they believe they now can predict that this one is going to be absolutely crazy. Well, it has definitely performed as far as this solar cycle has been absolutely nuts. We just last 2 weeks ago, we had 3 X flares in a row. It was just one after another after another. And that's, again, the same time that the whole AT&T shortage went down. But again, people are saying that whatever was affected during that outage, the UHF versus VHF or whatever the ultra high frequency range was affected, which they said solar events wouldn't have affected it. So people are saying, no, this was cyber. So that if that's unrelated and all of these things are going on, well, man, either something's getting pushed under the rug or something bigger is going on. Meanwhile, you have the super rich moving their assets. Gold has just skyrocketed out of nowhere. And of course, Bitcoin has skyrocketed. It almost hit 70,000 a couple days ago. And you have, of course, people like Jeff Zuckerberg. I'm thinking of Bezos and Zuckerberg having a baby. As far as Mark Zuckerberg and Rick Ross and other celebrities are building these super bunkers. Why are they doing that, right? These are people that are extremely well connected. They have plans to either go to New Zealand or to go into their super bunkers or to get their golden passports. Sam Altman is another example. He is CEO currently of one of the potentially biggest companies in the world very soon here. One of the quickest growing, I guess, industries in the world, and that's AI. He actually has been very open about this, about having a plan to get out if things go south. And then, of course, you have Elon Musk, the other richest man in the world. He has stated many times, he's very public about he's trying to take people to Mars because he believes it will save humanity. So all of this sounds like sci-fi, but this is what they're talking about right now. Dex, do you want to talk about what they're saying that they're preparing for? And we don't know what to believe, but this is kind of creepy to say the least.
Well, one thing with the Parker Solar Probe that was sent out, that's been, probing around and orbiting around the sun, trying to get more data. And the data they're trying to collect is specifically how to some of the get new insights about how the sun works, as far as how it will affect Earth as it relates to coronal mass ejections. And what they're also suggesting is that 2025 is the year, which is why they were in a hurry to get the Parker Solar Probe out sooner, so they could try to get more information, because the 2025 being the solar maximum, that is the predicted time that we have the most likelihood of seeing this maximum amount. And by the way, that time isn't just like one magical date in 2025. We're building into it right now, which is why we have been reporting and seeing, especially wages has been, so much solar activity. So we're actually seeing the proof of that as we're getting closer to it, but we may not have seen the worst yet. The worst may still be to come, and that's what they're worried about, and that's what they're trying to understand and discover as quickly as possible, so that we can deal with it. And the whole term about internet apocalypse, it's a coin that was a term that was coined by a computer science professor out of one of the big schools, UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine. They wrote the book, or a science paper titled "Solar Superstorms." But they were talking about the fact that all of the internet lines out there, and just like the power lines, are going to be susceptible to this, and it may even affect what are referred to as the underwater cables or the submarine lines. So, this can be a really big deal when it happens.
Now, say you're one of the people that are like, you're an idiot. Space doesn't exist. Totally understand. Everybody has different points of views, and you're allowed that. And you're also welcome. And I hope that everybody can get along. If you do believe that this is totally off on some fake tangent, then what do you think they're setting us up for? If they are talking about internet apocalypse, wouldn't you also be worried if this is something that's heavily being pushed right now? I would say then you would equally be prepared for something like this to go down, because you would believe it would be happening because of a different reason. So either way you look at this, no matter if you have a completely different view, then you should still be paying attention. I believe most of you would agree on that, even if you think that NASA, the four-letter agency, as some call it, or never a straight answer. If you believe that they're just making this up, I would highly recommend you also pay attention, because this is now what's being talked about nonstop. Not to mention, going into the year we are in, the comments by many people in power, the actions of many people in power, and of course, how our governments and in the world are all kind of doing right now, stocking up on stuff. China basically holding and hoarding everything from corn to wheat to natural gas. It's like, what the heck is about to go down? It really seems like something is on the horizon. And then a whole other camp of people are going to say, hey, this is to be expected. It's biblical prophecy. There are things going on in the biblical prophecy world that even if you are not religious and you are an atheist, you should be paying attention, because there are whole countries that are believers, and there are things happening right now, like the red heifer situation. If this goes down, that is a sign of end times in their ultimate belief. You're talking about there's countries that absolutely, without a shadow of doubt, believe in their religion so much they will give themselves for it. So we've seen that time and time again as well. So even if you aren't a believer, that doesn't mean that the other people aren't. And this is what's happening right now. It gets so crazy. And I say, if you're easily anxious and you're scared of scary movies, don't watch the show, because all of the things, there's so many events happening at once right now that it's kind of like, whoa, it's like, it does feel like the sky is falling. And it is kind of a crazy thing to think about, that all of these things are lining up at the same time. 2024 and 2025, we talked about it for years. All of a sudden, everything is here. All of the trains are arriving at the station at the same time. I don't know how a simpler way to put that. We talked about all these separate trains and separate disasters that could happen. And for whatever reason, they've all lined up in 2024 or 2025. The next set of disasters line up in 2029 and 2030. So either way, from Deagle report, pop drop, all of this other stuff that we've been talking about for years, it's actually here, and now we're seeing the headlines that we expected, and people don't believe it because now nobody trusts anybody, and that could be part of the problem too. The fact that that the people at the very top have made sure that everyone is confused, everyone is completely distrusting of each other. We are completely divided. We're completely in disagreement. So it's not a good thing. I mean, think about it, even just in our community. There are people that are on two opposite sides that will never see eye to eye. There's young and old. There's this color and that color. There's this religion, that religion, this state versus that state, this country versus that country. I mean, it's getting a bit much. I mean, like it's this party versus that party. So I'm praying, and I'm very I have a lot of faith and hope that all of this is going to work in a lot of our favors and that everything is going to be okay. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to prep for it and prepare myself spiritually and mentally and physically for something that may happen. That's what we've been recommending for years, and we hope that you do. We have smaller disasters that have happened just in the last month with all of the crazy weather, from storms knocking out people's houses, trees falling on houses, all sorts of stuff. These are all things that you would be prepared for if you went again, preparing for the general stuff that's happening right now. It doesn't hurt when all of these smaller events happen. So it's kind of like be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. And when you have smaller events happen, you're sitting pretty while everybody else is going to the store to greet the empty shelves. So I hope people pay attention to what's going on here. This is like really lining up to be one of the craziest 2 years ever in history. Look at all the countries going to war. I mean, it's nuts. And then Dex, do you want to talk about Texas? The power lines ignited the largest wildfire in Texas history, or at least that's what the officials say.
Yeah, so they came out today, and Xcel Energy has said that it was their equipment that appeared to have sparked, at least starting the some of the major fires, including even the Texas A&M Forest Service said its investigators have concluded too that power lines ignited both the Smokehouse Creek fire, which did 1,700 square miles, and then spilled into into Oklahoma. And then the nearby Windy Deuce fire, that was also one. So they weren't sure about they haven't said anything about the others yet, but those are significant enough. Just the fact that they're blaming it on the power company and Xcel Energy. I don't know to what extent now we'll see them held liable. We've sort of seen attempts at that in the past with other fires in other states. So, but Xcel Energy said it was their utility that had sparked.
Yeah, so the utility company is saying that the power lines started the Texas fire. Sorry, but the power companies are saying that it was actually the power lines that started the fire. Where is that coming from? Power lines started the fire. Weird. I guess we'll move on. And then we have USA amid explosive demand. America is running out of power. This is crazy. There we go. Okay, now we got it. Every time. There we go. We can do it. We can figure it out. USA amid explosive demand, America is running out of power. And this is something that we've talked about many times as far as all of the different states, and they have their own warnings about how everybody needs to reduce their consumption. Vast swaths of the United States are at risk of running short of power as electricity-hungry data centers and clean technology factories proliferate around the country, leaving utilities and regulators grasping for credible plans to expand the nation's creaking power grid. In Georgia, demand for the industrial power is surging to record highs with the projection of new electricity use for the next decade, now 17 times what it was recently. Arizona Public Service, the largest utility in that state, is also struggling to keep up, projecting it will be out of transmission capacity before the end of the decade, absent major upgrades. So that's even before everything changes, before everything changes, they will be basically way, way over capacity. Northern Virginia needs the equivalent of several large nuclear power plants to serve all of the new data centers planned and under construction. Texas, where electricity shortages are already routine on hot summer days, faces the same dilemma. The soaring demand is touching off a scramble to try to squeeze more juice out of an aging power grid while pushing commercial customers to go extraordinary lengths to lock down energy sources such as they're building their own power plants, which we talked about that when it was first kind of mentioned. And it's like, this is nuts. To the point where they're having big corporations say, hey, build your own power plants. Wonder what happens then too, right? So then you have all the corporations keep going after a disaster. The regular grid's down, but don't worry, you'll have your pharma companies up and running. Dex, Georgia is one of those places that you guys are possibly going to have an issue before other states. Like, I guess, do you guys have a lot of issues?
We haven't had power issues per se, but we have a lot of tech companies, and I say tech companies, I'm talking about the big tech companies coming here and bringing data centers or building data centers here. Cheap land, cheap taxes, cheap incentives to get into, especially some of the counties around here that are trying to develop themselves and get out of the rut they've been in. They've been creating incentives to bring these large companies in. Even this platform has huge data center investment here in Georgia. So that is absolutely the truth. And I think, as we look at what tech has been doing and how much more it is exponentially growing, especially when you think of even AI. So imagine how AI gets more prolific in everything that is out there. AI is not necessarily cheap when it comes to power. It needs tons of processing. And well, with lots of processing comes even more power. So this is an angle that most of us don't even pay attention to because it's not in our wheelhouse. We're more worried about, can we turn the lights on and off, and is the power going to go out in a storm, or will they EMP our grid and we be without power? But apparently the tech industry is just gobbling up all of the power across the nation to a point where they can't keep up. They, being the grids, aren't going to be able to keep up. And that is going to be a problem, especially when you think about the goals of the current administration and other forces in our nation trying to push people into EVs. And just imagine what would happen if everybody had an EV and all of that was added to the grid instantly, or even in a short term over the next 5 years when they're talking about 10 years in this report. So there's a lot of challenges I think we have on this very fragile and aging grid they talk about.
And there was an executive order done to harden our current grid, and the executive order was done by our former president. Trump did it, and then when JB got into office, he immediately undid a ton of them. But the executive order regarding our grid, that actually stayed. But we have information from some of our affiliates that essentially said, no, they didn't undo it, but they're basically not enforcing it. They're not pushing it. It's not getting, a lot of stuff is not being done, and it almost seems purposeful. It's really, really insane to think that there was this meeting. They talked about all of the risks. Clearly, they said, oh, well, this is common sense. We need to put money into this. America does not fix things until they're broken. A lot of countries do. Or don't. And it's like where you take a place like Japan. Japan knew that they had risks of earthquakes. They never knew that they had a risk of a 9.0. They actually did not know that tsunami fault, that subduction zone existed until it happened. But they did know that they had risks about earthquakes. So they wrote checks for the future for their kids' kids. The way that they look at their culture, they're like, well, if our grandkids could get hurt by this, we should write a check right now and try to fix the problem. We don't think like that. In fact, the only reason that the amount of people that perished was so low, and it was a high number. It's over 15,000. Some say 21,000, 16,000, whatever it was. It was over 15,000. That is extremely low to what it could be, or what it could have been. And that's because they built all of their buildings up to an 8.5 or 8.3 or 8.6 standard. That's why all of the buildings swayed during it. They did all of these changes and made sure that it was mandatory to do it. Here we have every agency saying that EMP and cyber event is likely, it is possible, it's probable, it is the first thing that would happen in any war with any of our adversaries. All of our adversaries have the ability to do this. It's one of the simplest ways to knock down our whole grid, and yet we are not doing anything about it. Not enough. There's one county, not state, one county out of the whole country that we know is completely hardened against an EMP strike. That's insane to me. It should be insane to everyone else as well. Me Puppet 007 has a lot of great comments here. It says lots of military-age men crossing the border, a lot of outages, i.e. Meta, cell phones, and pharmacies, an eclipse and planetary alignment in April. Something is going to happen soon. Be prepared. Shout out to the mods. So I know people that when you bring in the whole eclipse thing into it, that people will immediately, then they tune out. They're like, oh yeah, well all that happened. Then you bring in the alignment and the solar eclipse, and they're like, oh, okay. But you have to realize, like, we're living in a world where truth is stranger than fiction. And as far as this eclipse, if you are along the lines that somebody might be writing a script somewhere, it is kind of crazy. One thing that really bothers me about the Leave the World Behind is they put this random scene in of a shot from the moon and showing the Earth, and it shows an eclipse. And you think, gosh, it's just so convenient. They're talking about a civil conflict with all the timing, and literally in the same time period, they're going to be releasing a movie called Civil War. Everyone in mainstream is talking about a civil conflict. We are actually divided enough to have one. And then you have them showing the eclipse in the same April and May that they're now denying leave requests all over the military. Basically, people are saying, hey, all these leave requests are being denied and delayed until after April, May. People are going, well, we've already deployed 5 carriers. What is about to happen in April and May? Not to mention the largest NATO drill, the largest drill in North and South Korea that they've done. It's like all of this is happening all at the same time. It's like all the trains are meeting at the same time. It's really getting crazy. And then Captain America says, it takes more faith not to believe. I get what you're saying there. Yeah. There's a comedian that I like, and I think anybody and everybody, doesn't matter what you believe, made a really good point about believing in nothing. I'll have to share that clip. I think it's funny for everybody. It doesn't matter which side of that you're on. He made a really good point about it, basically saying that everybody's saying the same thing. Gosh, I got to get that guy's name. I constantly show people that clip. It's really funny. Yeah, so what's happening there? I hope that people are starting to prepare. We've been telling you guys for years, go check out EMP Shield. This is a way you can protect yourself. You can protect all your vehicles, your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, and your home against an EMP strike. Most of you already know about this. You're just waiting until you can get one. Right now, though, I would just remind you that if a regular one is out, they have been, a lot of people are now going and doing this because obviously what is going on in the news cycle, the threats that are now out there, people are heavily going out and trying to protect themselves. So if they are out of the EMP Shield, we know that they're delayed by a couple days shipping. Normally they ship out the next day. Make sure to go check if they have the EMP Micro. Again, if they're out of, I don't think they are out of the EMP Shield Micro, and they may have the EMP Shield regular in stock. But both do the same thing. This is just a little smaller, easier to put in, but it does cost a couple more dollars. It's all the same protection in a smaller package. This will ground the signal of either multiple EMP strikes or a Carrington level event from the sun. in 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car, truck, motorcycle, generator, home, whatever you may have it equipped on. They have different devices for different things, and they even have a device directly for the Flex 1500 system. So if you have that solar generator, they have one. In fact, it's the only solar generator you can get an EMP shield directly for. Same company outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD. Remember, they're protecting themselves, so why aren't we? marfugglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. I think in the end, all of our affiliates are something we think will either save your life, that will make you more comfortable through a disaster, or will generally make you better off in some sort of event. So go check it out. It helps us out, and it gives you a giant $50 off discount. All right, and then Dex, let's talk about the China Coast Guard flexes its might against the Philippines as journalists watch.
Yeah, this was kind of a bigger deal. So as we know, they continue to square off there between the Philippines and China, especially these Coast Guard ships. We talked about the one that sideswiped a patrol vessel with the people on board, the Filipino crew, got injured, etc. But there's also some new stuff going on, and you can show in these pictures here that they just recently had another standoff with water cannons. So the smaller supply boat was carrying the Filipino admiral and his sailors, and they used high pressure spray and shattered the boat's windshield and even mildly injured the admiral and 4 sailors with glass shards and splinters of debris. So they were just really determined to keep this boat, or you might even say they were trying to fill it full of water and sink it. I don't think that it's necessarily that unsinkable, but nonetheless, I'm sure that water just goes off the deck. But nonetheless, that's not peaceful. That is aggression. It's maybe not the same as firing a missile at another ship, but it is one form of aggression. And they were hitting it pretty hard from both sides with these very strong water cannons, obviously strong enough to damage the boat and injure the people inside.
Yeah, they're basically being a bunch of and yeah, I guess we'll see if it sparks off. It's not going to be a good thing. Thank you over on DLive. Thank you Pocoloco. Thank you Kiki Gray. Thank you Mojo Rising. The end is near. Let's do a quick roll call. We have a ton of great people in the chat. I knew we would probably be light today just because of all of the other stuff that's going on, all of the other streams and different coverages of what's going on. So I do want to thank you that you chose to spend your time with us, especially live. Everybody can watch anything replay. You can always watch us, but you guys chose to choose to watch us instead. So thank you. I really do appreciate that. Kimbria, again, thank you. PBAB, thank you for following. And thank you to all of the new subscribers. Thank you, LOD Will. Again, thank you, Stealth Mode, Team Alaska, and others. I appreciate you. And then, of course, Captain America, again, April 22 is Passover. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of weird things that are going to end up lining up in the next couple years. Somebody put a website together. I'll have to somebody sent me a website with all of the weird events that line up in 2024 and in 2025. If you are somebody who follows like the symbolism of days and events, it's really ridiculous how many events are lining up for 2024 alone, let alone 2025. And then North Korea's Kim calls for stronger warfighting capabilities against the U.S. and South Korea. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for greater warfighting capabilities against the United States and South Korea. State media reported Thursday after his defense ministry vowed to respond to the ongoing South Korean U.S. military drills that it views as an invasion rehearsal. So, and it's like North Korea, Kim Jong-un has been, and if Kim Jong-un's even still alive, if it's not his sister secretly taking over and they're just putting out AI videos, Sora videos, but it's like the same rigmarole every single year, every time we do this drill. We don't know what he truly thinks because we're getting it through the filter of Western media, and we don't know what he really thinks about it. But we do know that they are working very closely with China and Russia. And they just sent Russia 6,700 containers of weapons or something. Again, they believe it was artillery shells and a mix of like 155 millimeter uh, ammunition. And it's like with this going on, it's just constant kind of threats of doing something more. At the same time, we just had over about a week and a half ago, they confirmed, U.S. government confirmed that the satellite that they have up above, their spy satellite, that which was thought that it was dead in the water, is being controlled. So you wonder about what they mean by capabilities and what they would actually do. Do they really think that this is an invasion rehearsal? Is it really an invasion rehearsal? I mean, obviously they do a simulation of cutting the head off the snake, taking out Kim, but will it ever turn into the real thing? Some think they will. A lot of talk recently, and if you were Kim Jong-un, if you stepped into his shoes, they now are talking about Kim Jong-un like he's going to do a surprise attack. That's where you get into a scary situation. It's like where everybody's thinking like, oh, well, if they're going to surprise attack us, both parties are going to think we should strike first before that happens. Depending on information, if they get bad intel or good intel or three-letter agency intel that's incorrect to try to trigger something, then they could end up attacking North Korea first. Or there's the option where North Korea thinks that they will get that kind of information, or here's a rumor that information just went out and that they're going to surprise attack, so then they actually do surprise attack. With North Korea, it's always going to be this kind of roller coaster of words versus actual actions, and usually it's always just a roller coaster going up. We're hoping never to see that roller coaster go down. I'm especially those of you watching in South Korea. Dex, as far as Kim said, the heightened readiness is required to, quote, contain the constant threat of enemies with overwhelming force. It seems like they've pumped up they actually have pumped up their capabilities.
It certainly does, and this is the kind of response we expect because the drills are kicking off, and I wouldn't surprise us if we're reporting tomorrow or the next day that he's fired off a bunch of more missiles into the water, or even launched something towards the other islands there, just to tit for tat back every time we do a drill, right there with South Korea.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's go over J-Pass. We've got Danish girl Warren G reincarnated as real. What's going on? Stephanie Munoz, Tammy Driver, Burger Time is here. I was always intrigued by the train on the sitcom. Let's hear Skyson. Hi. Hope you feel better and get well rested tonight at Danish Girl. Danish Girl, thank you for stopping by. Again, thank you for being here for years. Don Jarhead, thank you. Fire in the Hole. We've got Ohio in the house. Thank you, guys. We've got Florida in the house. We've got Ecstasis. We've got Joe Scheidt. We've got Louisiana in the house. We've got Ireland in the house. We have Sweden in the house. Nice. We have, of course, Washington in the house, Oregon in the house, Kentucky in the house, Root Cellar. We have Stephen Wanus. Thank you over on X. I appreciate you guys. We have Trinity in the house. Thank you for modding. I appreciate that. Dustin, Oregon. Let's go Michigan. We've got Illinois, Wisconsin. We've got back in Texas, Bryan, Texas. All right, Jer. We've got Diane Whitlock, North Carolina in the house, Pennsylvania, Utah, a few side alone. We've got Tyges NZ from Christchurch, New Zealand. Nice to see you. Alabama in the house, NoCo, Michigan, Carrie Schaefer. Nice to see you. Isaiah 475, sit through thou silent. I gotta see the rest of that. I feel like I know that one. Hold on. Captain America again. Thank you. Let's see your Sweating Ministries. Thank you so much for your support. It says, sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt not no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Isaiah 47:5. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm trying to think of what that meant. I knew it. I can smell it. Thank you. I love you. Sorry. My wife just brought me. I could smell it before it even came down. Thank you. I do my show every single night, but we have kids and the dinner time always coincides with my show, so I always miss it. So she always, pretty much every night, brings me my dinner. So I'm really thankful and very blessed. Thank you. But yeah, thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate you. Thank you everybody from all over the world. I love you guys. But I smelled it. I've been sitting here just watching, like waiting. She never tells me what it is, so I'm always surprised. But tonight I was not. All right, and then North Korea images show North Korea sealing its border with China. What? So Dex, this is really why would they do this? This is really odd.
Well, it's something they started back during CV, and it seems to have grown. So they've got some satellite images. If you go further down in the article, there's a before and after picture. You can sort of see the lines. They were using this one specific city as an example. This is, of course, a human rights group that follows a lot of the stuff that NK does or Kim does, but they have been, extending, building primary fences, putting up secondary fences, trying to make it virtually impossible to get into China. And it's really, I think they want to keep their population in. It's not to keep anyone out. They're trying to keep people from leaving. And speaking, one escapee who spoke to her relatives back home said rice and wheat could no longer be smuggled into the country. She said, quote, "Not even an ant can make it across the border now," her relative told her. This has also made it hard. It's also made it harder for the North Korean escapees to send money back home to support their families, the report says, further increasing the suffering of the North Korean people. So obviously coming from a perspective of the people on the ground there and trying to, to help them, they're continuing to seal off as much of these areas where people were using and crossing into China to either get out or bring things back in.
And we've heard so many rumors, like they smuggled, somebody got, this is allegedly, mainstream media covered that somebody got perished by force because they had a copy of Friends, like a DVD of Friends. Something like that there is considered high treason, like any kind of content from outside the country, books, movies, DVDs, even a sitcom was considered, something that was a crime against the country. So I could see that. Does anybody have any alternate angles on why they would be sealing it up so tight? I could see that, trying to keep people in, not out. How many people do they lose to China? Here's the weirder thing is I know that they send people to Mongolia and other places on purpose, and they actually have a whole black. Oh, you know what, Dex? Here's what I thought about. So when they were really, really sanctioned, they weren't working so closely with China and Russia. They had this whole black market setup where they were actually sending North Korean citizens out. Now, these North Korean citizens, they could technically go out, work a job, and then they would bring almost 99% of the money back and just give it to the government. Now, people would say, why wouldn't they just leave once they're out of the country? Well, if they left, they would be tracked down and they would be perished, or their family that was still in North Korea would be taken out. This was something that was talked about years ago. I just wonder if they no longer need to do those black market things. They used to do all sorts of things. They would send construction workers out to do work in Mongolia, other places. There was a documentary that actually was in Mongolia. They showed all of these North Korean workers that were basically doing construction. They basically said they don't make anything because they would go back and give all of their pay to North Korea's government. But do they need those black market things? They would also deal in, they would make and distribute fake stuff, counterfeit purses, all sorts of different items, and all of that money would go towards the state. I just wonder if they are doing so much business with Russia and China that they no longer have to do that, and now they're basically having everybody stay inside the country. Nobody goes out for any reason. What do you guys think, though? Let me know. I'm not an expert on North Korea, nor am I an expert on, their border. So if you have more information, let me know. You can even give us a call and leave us a message at 224-400-MARF. Again, 224-400-6273. That also applies for any information. If you have some crazy information and you want to give it to us, make sure you keep in mind if you call our phone line, you press option 3 for the answering machine. Try not to do any personal information. If you do, we will end up editing it out, but we could play your call on air. So keep that in mind. If you have information that you think everybody should know, don't give personal information, but leave it on the answering machine. And then North Korea, images show North Korea sealing its border with China. Of course, we showed that. Hold on. And then, JB is to announce emergency U.S. military mission to build a port off of the Strip, off of the Gaza Strip, to deliver aid. So this is after this last week, they showed video of them actually dropping straight up pallets off of cargo planes and then parachuting down onto the beach. Now, people were pissed off about this. It caused a huge flurry of just madness all over online. People were like, what the heck? Why can't they just drive in and deliver it? It looked crazy because you see all these people. The video I saw was people all over this beach, and all of a sudden there's all of these crates coming down. And I was thinking, gosh, if any of these land on somebody, if somebody's not paying attention or something, if this was America, by the way, if this wasn't at the Strip, at least 10 people would have perished right away because they would have been looking at Instagram or Facebook. There was containers coming out of the sky everywhere. Is this in response to the madness? Dex, do you want to go over, what they're talking about doing, and what does this mean too, as far as building a something there?
They're going to build they're proposing, and we'll find out if it actually comes to fruition. And I imagine it's not just going to happen overnight, or will it be very quick? It might even require some congressional agreements and funding but a pier. They want to put a pier in, and it's a temporary pier, but it's a large pier that will allow large ships to dock so that they can bring in the aid. This is in response to the fact that they've had such a hard time getting aid into the Strip. As you said, they were dropping things in with parachutes to try to get in there because the trucks are not allowed to roll in anymore. They've been continuously blocked from either the north or the south. So this could be one other way they can get in there. Of course, all of that water is controlled by Israel, so I think they would actually have to approve of it for that to even happen. And I don't know to what extent that would happen, if that approval would even go through, or if this would even turn into some sort of conflict between the U.S. and Israel. But more to come on this. This is more speculation, but a lot of rumors that were coming out about what they were trying to propose.
And as you can see, the picture there shows, it's crazy how much they can drop out of one of these cargo planes, how big they are. Can anyone name that plane? That's not a Hercules, is it? I think I'm confusing my cargo planes. What's the model number on that? I know there's military folks that will be like, that's is that a Hercules? No. I guess I don't know from straight sight, but they're giant. Looks like the same kind of planes out of Greenland. And then U.S. fears Haiti could fall at any time as doubts grow over JB's backup Kenya plan. So Haiti's back in the news. Haiti has actually been talked about for a few years now, only really much on independent news as far as, people like Clayton Morris and others have talked about it, had special guests on about this kind of stuff. But really, many people do not pay attention to what's happening in Haiti. But the reason this involves us is, again, U.S. has stepped in on certain things. The U.S. government officials have grown alarmed that the Haiti National Police could begin to crumble within hours and that a long-planned multinational mission led by Kenya to provide reinforcements may not be enough to save the country from a complete descent into gang control. If you've been following what's going on there, I've seen statements I've seen both ways. There are people that actually prefer the gang's control compared to what they said was tyrants. But there were chunks that were controlled by gangs, and then there was chunks controlled by interim government, all sorts of other, groups. There were different gangs that actually controlled different areas, and they couldn't overstep their boundaries. Now they're stating that this is like one step away from essentially being completely under gang control. Dex, why does this, everybody talks about UKR and other places. It's like, oh, we can't lose a place like this, whereas Haiti has been going through this for years and years and years. Why are we even, I guess on this one, what is the angle? There's got to be a motivation. Why does Haiti keep popping up? Is there some sort of secret resource there? What are we really doing there?
So I think the most important thing probably to us is the proximity, and the fact that it's right there, next to the Dominican Republic. It borders up against it. We have a territory right next door beside that in Puerto Rico. It's a short distance from southern Florida. You don't like unrest, because where there's unrest, you create a vacuum, and where that vacuum, it gets filled. And the question is, do you just want it filled randomly, or do you want to control who fills it? And I think that, the Western alliance, so to speak, or anybody that's partnered with the U.S. is going to want to make sure that that doesn't turn into another Cuba or another, Venezuela, or another stronghold for any of the adversaries. So I think that's probably the most critical point of that part of the angle. It is a large, decent-sized island, or portion of an island. It's split with the Dominican Republic. But we've got, as we called, we said this a couple days ago. We were reporting on the fact that they had infiltrated the airport and they had tried to take it over. I said, look, you're going to hear, and the next few days, you're going to hear they're going to fall, and somebody's going to come, try to save the day. And it'll probably be led by allies of the U.S. I don't know that the U.S. would do it themselves. But we're certainly, in this position, working with allies to try to figure out how we can bring about some sort of rule there, and rule that is in alignment with our government, I'm sure.
And one of our U.S. officials, McClatchy, said the government could fall at any time. I'm sorry, that's not the name of them. They're anonymous. Said the government could fall at any time. If the HNP dissolves as an effective counterforce, if we see the airport or presidential palace fall, it's over. And the airport was the issue just the other day. So they're essentially saying that the government might dissolve. I almost guarantee there's some secret thing going on there that nobody actually knows what's happening. No mainstream is covering what is actually happening there. I always think that some 3-letter agency is doing something, but that's just my thoughts. Before we move on, if you haven't already, we have a great recommendation. A lot of folks were asking us how to get backup medications and emergency medications. Jace Medical is actually a telehealth. You get board certified doctors. This is a completely legit way to not only get backups of some of your normal medications, but also you can go over and check out the Jace case. It has emergency life-saving medications and antibiotics that are all in a kit. That, again, you'll get a discount on if you go through us. But make sure to go over there and learn more. They also have different plans as far as if you have regular medications, there's other things you can do through them, like get a 1-year supply of some of your most important stuff. You can get things added like albuterol, of course, to the Jace case. If you have asthma, things like that. There's actually a lot more on there, but you'll have to go to them to find that out. But that is a really, really good thing to have, especially when pharmacies are getting hacked. If the grid goes down, that also means your local Safeway or Fred Meyer pharmacy isn't going to be open. How are you going to get those kind of really important medications? Especially, we've all seen in sci-fi and in fiction, anytime any kind of major disaster, a real thing to think about is antibiotics. Antibiotics are obviously a little tiny paper cut could get infected. And in an emergency, if there is no antibiotics, we've seen it time and time again, played out in fiction, but this is a real thing that happens. In fact, it's a real thing that's happened millions of time over history, where somebody is stuck out, they're on an island or they're out in the woods in a plane crash. And there's people that would have survived if they only had antibiotics. So it is definitely one of the most important things that you can go do. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace and make sure to use the code MARF, but make sure to go through them and learn more. Again, go check it out. And let's see here. And then we have three injured and one perished in a fire at an oil refinery in an Iranian port city. So some are asking some questions here. Dex, what the heck happened here?
Well, they're claiming they were doing some repair work and that the place caught on fire. But this is a massive, a very large fire, and some might even be speculating that it could be something else to it. Anytime you see something big like this happen in Iran, the first thing everybody sort of questions is, did somebody like Israel or someone else, or even one of the organizations that run around the Middle East there that are against them have something to do with it? Now, again, they're saying, hey, no, we were working on it and it caught on fire, but this is a major, refinery. It's by the port city there. It obviously fills a critical role. So seeing something like that happen and potential destruction there would be an ideal target, so to speak, for somebody that is their enemy. So you just have to question that. Nothing yet has come out to say that it is anything nefarious, but it's also very early, so it's kind of hard to really tell the true story. And we don't know if they want the full story out or how they would spin or tell the story if they were to change it or give an update in the future. So we'll pay attention to it. We'll always keep our eye on big things like this that when they happen in Iran.
I guess the way that preppers look at something like this is it very well could just be a nothing, but there's always that thought in the back of the head, like, is this some sort of cover up where something really bad just went down? And this is like a one of those close calls where behind the scenes we're close to a huge conflict and we don't even know it. There's been many times in history over the last 30 years where we were very, very close. Some sort of small mistake could have caused a war with major countries. The same goes for other countries as well. Could this also be something where they almost had a close call with Israel? Obviously, they've been pretty vocal about what they want to do. Ukraine and Russia came within 500 feet of triggering NATO's Article 5. Perfect example. Moscow nearly triggered a collective response from NATO by firing a missile that reportedly struck close to a convoy transporting the Greek prime minister and Ukraine's president. So if you remember yesterday, we talked about this, and this is exactly what we said. We said, whoa, why didn't they get any kind of notice? We talked about it when we covered this yesterday. The thing is that the Greek prime minister, the leader of Greece, was hanging out with Zelensky. And they decided to go to this really violent and really, really rough part of an active war zone and go check it out. And everybody was like, why? Why would they do that? Why would they decide that time to go there? And then also, why didn't they alert Russia that was happening? Or did Russia know? The one thing is with other previous things, we mentioned, like when JB, our president, visited Warsaw in Poland, he had to take a train through UKR. They told them, and then Russia said, okay, we won't attack. We know that the US president is visiting, right? Why did this not happen? What ended up happening here? As far as they say that this missile attack could have taken out the Greek prime minister. Greece is part of NATO. As you can see, that is an instant Article 5. It says the Illinois Republican was responding to reports of the proximity of a Russian missile strike to Kyriakos Mitsotakis and Vladimir Zelensky on Wednesday when they met in the southern UK airport of Odessa. Odessa, the same Odessa that they've talked about for now months, as far as it's had attacks almost every day. Mitsotakis told reporters how he and his entourage had, quote, heard the sound of sirens and explosions that took place near us, adding that we did not have time to get to a shelter. So if it did hit, like, this sounds like some sort of Ganda. I don't know what the heck's going on with this. It sounds like they're setting up, like they're making it, obviously it looks like, oh, Russia's really irresponsible. They almost took out the Greek prime minister. But I'm surprised more people aren't asking, like, why did you not alert another country that, hey, a NATO country's here? You would think that would be something they would do, because would they have the balls to just straight up take out the Greek prime minister? That would even protect the Ukrainian president. You would think Volodymyr Zelensky, they would absolutely tell them that. But maybe they wouldn't tell them that because they're so afraid of actually having, him taken out. Dex, do you get what I'm saying? Like, you would think he would tell them the Greek prime minister is there, because then if Russia tried to take him out, it's probably that he wouldn't, because he's got the Greek prime minister there.
Yeah, either that or he's using him as a shield. Or you'd be using him as a shield, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But maybe they're so paranoid about maybe that they're talking like Russia's going to attack no matter what, right? Maybe that's, they're so paranoid about it that they're actually not saying, but who knows what the truth is on this. And then Dex, do you want to talk about, they float the idea for nuclear power on the moon. Russia and China are talking about this.
Yeah, so this is in another, first to one up against the U.S. China and Russia are suggesting that they build together a nuclear power plant on the moon with a goal of finishing the project by 2035 and subsequently helping establish lunar settlements. So the Russians have the world's most mature space program, have accumulated a lot of first satellite launched in space, first vessel to the moon, and first man or woman and dog in space. According to the report, they've got a lot of know-how. They've shared some of that kind with know-how with China. So, the No Limits partnership is very clear here when it comes to the relationship. And I think that as we see even the progression in space, whether it be space warfare or just the exploration, or I even would consider building these bases or installations on the moon as probably being militarized, no matter how you look at it. It makes total sense that you're going to see Russia and China teaming up. So the quote goes on: Russia and China want to upstage the United States by placing a nuclear reactor on the moon. Whoever gets there first will dictate the terms of discourse to the latecomers, and that's a strategic type threat. So, of course, that's why there's this massive race now to see who gets there first, who not just plants a flag, so to speak, because maybe that was done in the past, but really who establishes, a position and a base and, an operation there is going to have a lot more say. Ultimately, I mean, who knows? Maybe if they could defend the whole moon as a whole, they could literally say we're gonna claim the whole thing. That quite possibly could go down.
I want to know, like, what is also going on. We have to update this, and we'll try to put something together on this. China says that they're going to make a multi-mile long structure in space. They already have their own space station up. But I want to know what they're talking about: space hotels. And in fact, that was a few years ago. They said by 2026, 2027. Obviously, I think they're a little behind on that. But will they be? Will they be for long? Another thing that people have been talking about with AI is that if AI, the smarter and the smarter and the smarter and the more capable that AI is, they could start having it just start working on problems on its own and say, hey, can you figure out how to do this? And then AI goes and does it, right? How can we get past this barrier? When it becomes as smart as a human, it could be working in the background 24/7 trying to fix problems. One of the things is nobody's talking about this, about AI inventing. I mean, think about that. Nobody even has talked to, I haven't heard anybody talking about AI being able to invent things, to progress technology. That is such a crazy thought that watch technology. If they're saying everything that's happening is true, AI could just absolutely evolve super, super quick. In 5 years, we could have technology that would have taken humans, decades or centuries, and they could do it in a year. That's what's crazy to me about the whole thing. If it becomes sentient, or if it becomes as smart as a human, but has the ultimate power of just, millions of servers doing processes at all times, like, crazy to think about. Now they're talking about nuclear plants on the moon. Is that really what's going on? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And rubbing one out. You got me with that one. You got me with that one. And everybody tries to get me with their names. Oh, I'm like just reverted back to 12 years old right there. You got me with that one. I don't know if that was on purpose, but it says, Marf, they are attacking the truckers. Word Trucking was hacked on Sunday. Thank you, Ruben. I don't know. I will have to look into that. I think there's a lot of us that when younger watched Beavis and Butthead, even older guys watch that, and nobody wants to admit that they thought that stuff was funny, but that's pretty funny. Great show again, Marfdex mods. The world has gone mad, but you guys keep me informed and one up the most people I know. Thanks, guys. Domenico Lavara, thank you, and I appreciate that. Choking on the bread here. Ugh. Okay. And then top scientist warns AI could surpass human intelligence by 2027, decades earlier than previously predicted. Exactly what, everything here. It's like, what happens when all of this goes down? The computer scientist and CEO who popularized the term artificial general intelligence, or AGI, believes AI is verging on exponential intelligence explosion. The PhD mathematician and futurist Ben Goertzel made the prediction while closing out a summit on AGI this month. It seems quite plausible we could get to human-level AGI within, let's say, the next 3 to 8 years. Once you get to human-level AGI, Goertzel, sometimes called father of AGI, added within a few years, you could get a radically superhuman AGI. While the futurist admitted that he could be wrong, he went on to predict that only impediment to a runaway ultra-advanced AI, far more advanced than its human makers, would be if the bot's own conservatism advised caution. You guys might reckon, isn't this the same? I swear this is the same guy that does the TED Talks with his robots that have AI in it. Dex, do you know what I'm talking about? The video he talks to one of the famous AI, the female bots, and he asks a question. I recognize him only because the long hair and the goofy hat, or very cool hat. And then Goertzel made his...
Yeah, that I think that's him. I'm trying to look it up.
Yeah, he I think he's the one who he got a lot of fame. There was a clip going around. Obviously, it showed this like interaction and he asked about the end of the world or something to them, and it was a very creepy response, and it was the robot was equipped with this AI.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, Gordsall made his predictions during the closing remarks last week in the 2024 Beneficial AI Summit and Unconference, partially sponsored by his own firm, Singularity Net. Gosh. And then where he is CEO, there are known unknowns and probably unknown unknowns. Gordsall acknowledged during his talk event, no one has created human-level artificial general intelligence yet. Nobody has solid knowledge of when we're going to get there. Gosh, it's just, it says, but unless the processing power, in Gordsall words, required quantum computer with 1 million qubits or something, an exponential escalation of AI struck him as inevitable. Yeah, so he's saying that unless it required some quantum computer with quadrillions of qubits, but it doesn't. And here's the crazy part too, is as far as what this is going to be able to do, it's like this is something that it's going to change everything. I think many people are finally realizing why everybody was so alarmed about it. A couple years ago, before a lot of the clips and a lot of the comments and a lot of the stories came out about why this is a big deal, people didn't realize, like, this is Terminator in real life. That's the possibility, a Skynet type thing. Yeah.
Hey, Adam.
Go ahead.
If you scroll down, I think there is an image of him with Sophia, the robot. Which is
Sophia.
probably the one you're talking
Yes,
about.
that's her.
A little further down, you'll see a picture of it.
Yes, that is Sophia. So, and did she dye her hair pink? Almost looks like she dyed her hair pink. And what if super AGI is super AGI bias? Oh man, that would be nuts. And then, and then we have Jake Paul set to fight 57-year-old boxing legend Mike Tyson and vows to put him to sleep. This is so crazy, and I know Jacob Israel will be following this one because he follows all the Jake Paul stuff. But first of all, there's actual videos of Mike Tyson walking around with a cane, and people are saying that, Mike Tyson won't be able to do what he once was, and that he's not well, and that this is a messed up thing. I still think Mike Tyson could take 100 of Jake Paul's punches and then punch Jake Paul once and knock the guy out. I think that if Mike Tyson loses on this, it will be that it was faked, and he took the fall for $60 million or something. It's so crazy because this is going to get coverage over so many other huge stories. And who knows, maybe they're purposely doing this because they know how much fascination there is with Mike Tyson and with Jake Paul. What is going to happen on the days that this happens, or the days that they announce, the days all of these things happen? What is going on in the back end? Dex, who do you think is going to win, Mike Tyson or Jake Paul?
Mike Tyson all day long. Look, I don't care about the rumors. If the video they've been posting today is true, where they're showing Tyson at 57 sparring in the ring with a trainer who's got massive amount of padding on to handle the punches, he's still got it, and I don't care, man. That guy, if he has an eighth of the kind of punch he had in the past, it's gonna take out Paul. I'm not a big boxing guy, so I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I do remember watching all those Tyson fights, and he could land a really killer punch. And so, yeah, I have zero faith in Jake Paul.
One thing, Jake Paul
fan, sorry.
He's like 6'3", 6'4", or something, and he's big. So the first time I saw Jake Paul next to The Rock, I was like blown away. They're the same height. In fact, Jake Paul looked a little bigger than The Rock, and I was like, whoa, what the heck? Size is very confusing. As we just talked about last week, people thought I was short. You can't tell how big people are on screen. People think Tom Cruise is tall. He's like 5'7". There's a bunch of people in Hollywood. I think Brad Pitt's like maybe 5'10" or 5'11" or something. There's a bunch of people that are actually really short. Then there's people like Ben Stiller, which everybody goes, yeah, they're short. They know they're short. But as far as like Jake Paul, he's a big guy. He's a very big guy. Mike Tyson, I believe, is shorter, but he's stacked. Who do you think is going to win? Comment down below. Do you think it's going to be Mike Tyson or Jake Paul? And do you think it's going to be a fixed fight? I think so if Tyson loses. But the other thing is they keep lining up these big Jake Paul, his brother Paul, whatever, the other Paul. They keep lining up these fights, and it's with these people that are way, way out, haven't fought in years and years and years. But in Mike Tyson's case, that guy's like starting bar fights like every other day. So it's not like he might have stepped out of the ring, but he hasn't stepped out of the ring.
And Adam, for our audience, because there's some chunk of it that has no clue who Jake Paul is, how would you describe him?
6'4" white
I mean,
YouTuber.
why is he important? Like, who is he?
Because he was a YouTuber / vlogger. Most of you might remember there was a guy who got in trouble because he went to the take your own life forest in Japan and wore like a Pokemon thing and got in trouble for that. That was a big event. A lot of people know him for. Your kids would know him. I would say he's somebody your kids know who he is. He's gotten in trouble for several scams. He's gotten in trouble for advertising to kids in into their YouTube videos, like casually saying like, "Hey, have your mom go buy this at," and I'll say allegedly, having their kids go, "Hey, buy my shirts at Target or whatever." But yeah, Jake Paul, him and his brother are both like the
Logan, right?
Logan, yeah. Logan Paul and Jake Paul. I'll show you. I bet you guys will totally recognize them. Jake and Logan Paul. They're podcasters. They are the epitome of what do you call it? Influencers. Okay, they're these guys. Once you see them, you probably can't unsee them. These guys. But both guys are pretty big. Logan Paul is like 6'1" or 6'2" or something. But his brother is like 6'3", 6'4" or something. They're both big guys. So they're not tiny guys. They're actually really big. Don't even look that big in the pictures. But now they're doing these fake fights. I think that's what they are. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then world's largest metamorphic rock oil field found in China's Bohai Sea. Just a quick reminder, make sure to go over and check out Energy. You'll definitely want to get your name on one of these generators before long, because it does have a weight. As we've talked about lithium and the battle going on about them, solar generators are going to be, in my opinion, harder and harder to get over time. This is one of the best makers of solar generators out there. In fact, they just won an Army contract. They'll be sending this out for the STTR Phase 2 contract. Their new tactical has built-in heaters. It has got a steel reinforced frame, 1,500-pound latches. Again, it is silent. Nobody is going to hear that you have it. And of course, it can be modded and expanded up to 96 batteries. So this thing is one of the best solar generators on the market. The Army doesn't care if it's pretty or if it sparkles or if it has internet connectivity. They care if it turns on and turns on every time. In fact, all of those other things, if you look at some of their competitors, I would highly recommend, if there's anything that compares directly to them, then I'd highly recommend going and checking the company that actually is behind it, and then go check out the ties to certain countries that company, said company has. You might be able to get it on Monday, but on Tuesday in 2027, if something happens, will it actually work, or will it be turned off remotely? That's what the worry is with other stuff. With this, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting a high quality product with every single part, every single wire, everything in here is high quality and as tough as a tank. It's built like appliances used to be. That's how I would describe it. Um, Even down to the, I don't know if if you've ever felt a powder coated uh, piece of metal. That's how the outside feels. It's as durable as it gets. That's why I say this thing could fall off a truck with those latches and stay together. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. Make sure you use the code Marfoogle. And then, so the oil field, Dex, you put it much more eloquently as far as why this is a big deal. Obviously, China found this a bit ago, but they're going to start actually drilling it. It's a huge oil field, or a metamorphic oil field. It definitely puts a kind of a shank in the U.S.'s side, because they're going to be able to start selling this without the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, so this is it's a special type of petroleum whose oil reserving rock has been subject to weather corrosion and tectonic deformation. This is not a normal oil field. Regular non-metamorphic oil fields are what you normally have. This is a metamorphic reserve, and it's the largest one ever found. And they actually discovered this not a long time ago, last year, but they didn't know how big it was. Now they have discovered just how big it is, and it's something to the tune of 200 million cubic meters of oil. Now, it's not earth shattering in the sense that all of a sudden they're the largest oil reserve country in the world. That's not happening. But what it is happening is it's giving them a very large amount of additional oil to their coffers, so to speak, and gives them the opportunity to then sell that or manipulate or change the prices in the oil economy. But what's more important is we know that they have been moving away, and specifically since the sanctions were laid down on Russia, they've all shifted away from using the US dollar. They've all started to trade now. When I say they all, those the alliances, BRICS, however you want to frame it, China, Russia specifically, are trading oil and not using the United States dollar to do that. So this has a 1-2 punch, so to speak, towards the oil economy and the petrodollar economy. And we did a really good short on this over on Marfoogle News. So if you're looking for more information on it, go over there and check it out. Or if you're looking for something to share, a smaller, bite-sized piece of content that you can easily share with family and friends, that's one to do it, because it's easy to get to and it's easy to share. It's easy to digest. But again, this gives them we'll have to watch as this plays out, but it's going to give them a lot of power, at least in a manipulation point of view, with oil trade. And I think that's probably the most important thing. Not just worrying about, are they going to become the biggest oil producer out there? It's not necessarily the case, but they do have
It also
the
gives
South
them
China
money.
Sea and other places. Yeah, it gives them plenty of money. The South China Sea and other places that we think they're going to continue to mine. This is one of the seas. If you go back to the map we have, you can sort of see it's the sea right there near North Korea. It's up north. It's not down in the South China Sea. So they've got all this other waters they're going to be continuing to explore, and they may turn out to find more oil. But this is a big find for them, being the largest ever metamorphic rock oil field, which is a little bit different than a regular oil field, but it is a big deal.
Well, how much oil they can get out of it, they can sell for either yuan or for BRICS currency, whatever it may end up being. But also, everybody's been saying, oh, China's about to collapse. Their economy is about to go kaput. China, in their own media, which is completely approved directly by the government, they are putting out that their economy is doing very bad. Look weak when you are strong. It's art of war. I'm telling you, I don't think they're as bad off as they think. They're secretly building Navy, Air Force, as far as their entire military is being built, as far as their nukes. All of this stuff was built undercover. They built thousands and thousands of Navy boats without anyone knowing that it happened. All of a sudden, overnight, they went to the largest Navy in the world. They did this all very secretly. So where do they get the money for that? Everybody say, oh, they're failing. They're going through a depression and that their economy is about to fail. Things like this make a huge change to that. If it's even like that in the first place. You've got billionaires around the world investing billions and billions and billions of dollars into China. And then, of course, they manufacture for the entire world. They also manufacture for the entire world extremely cheap. And most of those big manufacturers all the money goes back up to the top. And I'm sure it's not all accounted for. Talking about shady companies that are also still connected to the CCP. All those like knockoff companies that make knockoff stuff that get shut down all the time. Those companies, if they're big enough, the reason they get to keep going is they give their cut to the government. A lot of them are partnered up with the government. So I think they have a lot of money that they don't talk about. Because I think it puts people at ease to think that China's about to fail and that they're going to go belly up. If they are going to fail, if they do go bankrupt for some reason, well, first of all, the whole BRICS thing is kind of leaning on China in the first place. And a lot of people are saying that it's going to become a thing. But if they are going to fail and go bankrupt, that's a bad sign too, because they have one of the largest militaries in the world. That's when they start forcefully taking money back. And a lot of countries owe them. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Domenico. Thank you, Sweatin' Ministries. Thank you all for what you do, Adam Dex and Mods. Thank you. Corjun Franklin says, pray, pair Jamie Martini Franklin, cancer return. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry. I am praying that I hope that it can be put back in its place. I am so sorry to hear that. You guys, one of my good friends, he had testicular cancer and then ended up getting esophageal cancer, and then it traveled to the rest of his body, liver and brain cancer. But he actually was 15 years without cancer, and then it came back and got away from it. Then he got liver cancer, and then once it travels to your liver, it goes everywhere. I've been down that road with many friends now at this point. It's so crazy how many people are getting cancer. It is the absolute worst. I don't think there's anything I hate more than cancer. It's like, even if you're healthy, you do everything. Some of my friends, like my one friend who was a security guard in my 20s, he was like 25 years old, fittest guy in the world, just perfect diet. Him and his girlfriend literally ate. They were over the top, so healthy, to the point where they ate everything, GMO free, natural, ate the right amount of this, right amount of that. It was just the epitome of fitness. And cancer took him in 6 months. He was skin and bones. It's just, gosh. And now today, one part of that State of the Union where he said, oh, thank gosh for the V, and now the V's that will be able to cure cancer. Oh, that part, I think a lot of people just got kind of jabbed in and turned when he said that. All these companies, they say that the V is the future because it is yearly, and you just keep taking it, and it's money, just free flowing out, and it's recurring. It's a recurring charge. It's like, instead of you paying for a yearly subscription, it's like you get a monthly subscription and it goes for the rest of your life. That's kind of how they're going to do healthcare. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Remember to watch that short right here. If you're watching the replay, click right here to watch that Marfoogle News short. And thank you so much. Join us for the shoutro. It's not a shoutro. It's not an outro. It's a shout. I totally screwed that up. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
You got the problem. We got the problem. We go solve them. You got the problem. You got the problem. We got the problem. We go solve them. You got the problem. You got the problem. We got the problem. We go solve them. You got the problem. You got the problem. We got the problem.